Shahidul Alam. I'm a photographer and a writer based in Bangladesh. Reportage in a very broad sense, but I don't really do too many assignments nowadays. I tend to work a lot more on long-term personal projects. Things I've been looking at more recently are things like extrajudicial killings. I have a very particular interest in human rights issues. There's a very broad rule that I use, which is I tend not to do things to people that I wouldn't want to have done to myself. On reflection, certainly, ethics is always a complicated issue, you never really know. I've been doing a story on the British upper class for some time, and I have a particular position on it myself. My politics is known, but of course, before I was to talk to people, I had to explain to them why I was doing it, what I was doing. I knew that coming up with all the things I was talking about was not going to be particularly attractive or make the people want to cooperate with me, but of course I had to do it. So what I did was I presented all the facts exactly as they were, but in a way that left enough ambiguity for them to not be sufficiently dissuaded, shall we say. I certainly didn't lie, I certainly didn't withhold information, but I think if I were clinically honest with myself, I allowed themselves to be sufficiently deluded. And to be honest, I also created a situation where their own vanity would lend them into playing that role. I'm not sure if that was 100% as it should have been, but I'll also be candid, and I think there are times when we as journalists take liberties, and this perhaps was one of those situations. The most obvious one is to create things that didn't actually happen. Even if it meant recreating things which actually did happen. I think certainly as journalists we have a need to be trustworthy to the people we tell the stories to. And there are times when your story is not as attractive as it might have been had you had something perfect. I think we have to accept that, and we have to recognize that not all stories are perfect. But in the attempt to get the perfect story, and certainly in the attempt to win awards or do well in our careers, taking liberties upon facts is something very problematic. And certainly in Bangladesh, there are two instances I know several, but two I know about very specifically. One is an award-winning picture of a little girl swimming in the floodwater when I know that the waters were only knee-deep and there was no need for her to be swimming. She did it because that was what produced a good picture. The other is someone where it's not just the photographer, but a whole lot of other people are involved, and that is every time there is a Muslim group protesting in the streets of Dhaka, there's one person who comes up with a toy gun. Everyone knows it's a toy gun. The photographers know, the agencies know. They take the pictures, it's distributed without anyone ever mentioning that it's a toy gun. I find it very problematic. It might not come into play, but I think it should. I think the ethics hold for all photographers, and certainly I would not hold one photographer a different code of ethics to others. But one of the things that's very important for a majority world photographer is that they are often part of the community, and certainly they're aware of a whole lot of other issues which a foreign photographer might not be aware of, and because they need to take responsibility for that extra knowledge. what happens for many visiting photographers is that they will work with fixers, local people and things like that. And when the shit hits the fan, they've often gone away. And to be fair, foreign photographers get away with a lot more than local photographers do. So I think foreign photographers should be aware of protecting the people they work with locally. But local photographers need to be that much more conscious of the after effects of what they do upon the community they work with. And getting a story might be fine for them, but at the end of the day, it's the interest of the community that needs to be considered. I have a particular take on the aspect of objectivity, which you talked about. When you find yourself in a very unequal situation, at least if I find myself in a very unequal situation where the power structures are such that there are certainly people who are oppressed and people who are oppressing, I will clearly position myself on the side of the oppressed. In a non-neutral situation of that sort, to take a neutral position for me is problematic. I will be open about my allegiance, but I make no qualms about the fact that when a situation like that occurs, I'm clearly on the side of the oppressed. Well, I think this is a very specific situation where the minority world has an agenda, and this is something we need to recognize. So when reporting is done, it's often done with that perspective. And I think when there is such huge inequalities, to pretend that by staying in the middle, you're actually being objective is a problematic position. I, as a journalist, have a need to report, but I also am a human being, and as a human being I have a position, and I do not think by being a journalist I can be less of a human being.